I feel like black lives have not really mattered in the fashion industry, and they haven't mattered for a very long time, even before my time. Hey guys, it's Shaun Ross. Definitely been in the modeling industry for about 13 years, but I'm sitting down with you right now to give you my point of view on something. When it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, it's obviously been one of and I think it's actually confirmed to be the biggest movement that we've ever seen as a civil rights movement inside of America. When it comes to the fashion industry and how it's been supporting, I've always felt like the fashion industry has this lackluster view on what their duty is when it comes to inclusivity. And I think that to understand, it's more so just about consistently educating yourself, consistently having the conversation with people around you, proactively practicing the way that you communicate with people, and just trying to get rid of some of the old bad ways and habits. So I've been in the fashion industry for about 13 years. Well, that was 15, super new, super young, and I didn't really pay attention to the racism that was happening because I was so overwhelmed with how the industry was going to treat me. And I can definitely say that when I first started out, it was definitely cool to be a part of a world that only one person could even dream about. But at the same time, I was being made fun of by being called these different names. And as I got older, and I started to see how the fashion industry just treated people in general, down to even casting. I did start to see how I feel like black lives have not really mattered in the fashion industry, and they haven't mattered for a very long time, even before my time. You have people like Beth Ann Hardison, who she started the Black Girls Coalition, and this was something that was a movement that talked about why the visibility of Black women, or just Black models in general, on runways was so scarce. It's never ever the spectrum of Black people that are appreciated as well. And it's always just okay, we have our one token. I've never ever really came into the issue, obviously, when it came to makeup matching backstage, because I clearly have white skin. As I got older, and I had a lot of close model friends growing up, and it was always just a conversation of, I look gray. My makeup looks gray. And I used to laugh. I'm like, girl, that is such a absurd color. But they were my friends, dead ass serious. A lot of models of color would always go, and they would have, to not, create conflict, they would get their makeup done. Then what they would do is they would go to the bathroom, and then they would put their own foundation on. And that's sucky, because if you're a makeup artist, you're supposed to know how to do all shades. That's your job, but you don't, because your mind is not inclusive. When you're backstage back in the day, and it's Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week, which is the pinnacle in New York of you made it. It was just so crazy to see backstage how 90% of the makeup artists and hairstylists were white. You would always get someone, and they never know how to do black hair. I've seen girls cry backstage. I've seen girls call their agent I don't want to fucking do the show, because they have me looking crazy. So when I was coming up, there was the way how the fashion industry is so in this terminology, I say colorful, just the way of personalities. They wanted you to have personality when it came to casting, but they really didn't want you to have personality that went above their brand. It was just we want you to be big enough where you can sell, but don't be bigger than us. And that came down to the specifics. Casting directors telling you what they were looking for, or being super, super blunt about how you would never ever do this and you would never do that because you were either too fat or you were too feminine. I remember there was a time when I had a casting with a very, very big casting director. They asked me, I was I think 16, and they said, "What's this thing on your nose?" By the way, if anybody's asking, my nose, I was born like this. It's a benign tumor that I don't feel the need to remove because I just love the way my nose is. It's my trademark. And she went to me and she said, "You have a very, very interesting look, but what is this on your face? It's very, very," she goes like this with her hand. She says, "It's very, very off." And she goes, "I don't think people like Steven Meisel would really, really want to shoot with you because your face is not very symmetrical." She was clearly wrong. But still, at that point, it's to tell a kid that, it's so troubling. It's so dehumanizing in a massive way to just tell somebody like you're not good enough. Even when it came down to like agents, like I've been openly gay since I was 10 years old. I never felt the need to hide who I was as an individual. And then when I come in fashion, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, yeah, it's fashion, the gays. I'm like, cool, like it is what it is. But that's not how it was. It was like if you were a male model, you had to be a male, and it was what it was. And if you were not manly enough, they wanted you to act like you were. They didn't want you to dress up. They wanted you to walk around in a plain t-shirt and denim, and they wanted you to carry around something that seems sporty to make it give off like you're a boy, like a skateboard, a basketball. When I first started in the fashion industry, Mark Brown was one of my close friends growing up. And he had so many elaborate, fashionable clothing. And he'd be like, you have to put this on. And I'm like, what is Margiela? And it was so amazing. It allowed me to be more feminine, more innovative. It allowed me to experiment more. And I used to have my first pair of Rick Owen heels, and I would stomp in those all the time, like to castings, and freaking, they would look at me like, what are you wearing? But then that's the whole thing, like men dress in so many different ways. When you have people today that they are dressing in like gender fluidity inside of like clothing is more acceptable. Now we have a big world where you could be whatever you want. Like you go into like casting rooms, if you're not edgy enough, you don't get the job. Like they want you to walk in heels, and they want you to come in leather pants and crop tops. And when I was coming up, like none of that was appreciated on a very, very wide scale. Like, and I had to always go through that. And I'm happy to have been one of the trailblazers. Like I had to carve away for myself. But what allowed me to carve the way even more was Guy Trebe wrote this article on me. The title was, Will His Singularity Lead to Pluralism? I'm like, okay, well, I get to be in the New York Times. This is cute. You know, I'm like 17 at the time or whatever how it was. I didn't really understand how big that question was, but what I did understand was it was important for me to push forward. And there were so many people before me who made it possible, like Alec Weck. She has always been scrutinized for her skin. Connie Chu, who's actually the first model with albinism ever. Then you have people like Tracy Norman, a transgender model who was silent for years. And you have people like Grace Jones and Pat Cleveland and Beverly Johnson. And then obviously the power Black models where you have Tyson Bedford, Leah Cabetti, Veronica Webb, Naomi Campbell, Tyra Banks. These are people who made it very, very easy for me to at least think that I could do something. I started to think to myself, like, you know, will there be more like, you know, like me? Will there be more that come after me that have this thing? And there was, you know, you have people today like a Winnie Harlow, who is known for her beautiful skin, having vitiligo, being extremely courageous. And then you have someone like Ralph Souffrant, and he has this beautiful freckled skin. And someone like Jillian Mercado, where they take their abnormalities and they make it into something positive. And then you have people like Alton Mason today, who he is this mysterious model, which I love. He is masculine, but he also has the right amount of feminine, and he's very, very to himself. It was a massive gap before when I started to when these people came. So it's cool to see other people taking the torch and they're doing their thing, but it has to be gratitude that is paid towards like the people who came before us, like I said earlier. I don't see a lot of recognition coming from the younger crowd that is on top today. I don't see them paying like an homage to their peers that have come before them, or people who have made it easier for them to even think that they can do what they do today. And also educate to your followers, like, because of this person, you are now able to watch me. So I posted on Instagram something that I've been thinking about for a very long time when it comes to expressing my Blackness, expressing who I am as a Black man, and the obstacle that I've had explaining that for so many years, for almost 3 decades. Don't touch my head. And why my Black is as Black as the next. And that's something that I feel like people have to understand when they look at me, because there has been this thing in the industry where I have been the exception, because I don't fall in the category of white or Black. I fall in the category of eccentric. And that's the issue. One of the words to get rid of is exotic. Stop saying that they're exotic. They're not exotic, they're people. And I appreciate that, but that's something that I've always had to do with my entire life. You're not Black, you're not white, you're exotic, you're different, you're freakish, you're eccentric. So that's why my quote was about like, yes, like at the end of the day, I am a Black man. I breathe like a Black man. I am a Black man, but I also hurt like a Black man. When it comes to brands and fashion, and even down to like the way how like massive houses and the way they do not support Black lives. I always feel like the fashion industry would rather steal than support. And then you have bigger brands that are finally coming up in the Black community, like Pierre Moss, where you have Kirby, who is making a lane for people of color and inviting more of all different types of races and different things like that. You have people like Telfar, you have people in brands like Hood by Air. They are the culture. I think that brands, in my opinion, especially with Instagram and stuff like that, brands are very prone to, let me hop on the wagon, let me hop on the bandwagon, and let me be trendy. I think that being trendy is what has honestly messed up the fashion industry. Like, now you have Instagram telling you what's cool. It sucks because I see people trying to play catch up when you forgot your job is to tell people what's cool. And I think that publications are losing their value simply because they're trying to play catch up. They're trying to be the cool parent. The viewer never told you what was cool. You told the viewer what was cool. Breaking into the fashion industry was hard. Today, it's so easy. You be on Instagram, get 100,000 followers. Next thing you know, you're the face of a freaking brand that models have to stand in line in Milan for 4 hours just to be told, thank you for coming. The other thing when it comes to models that are new, I think it is very, very important to educate them. In the future, I hope to see more inclusivity, not only in race, but also lifestyle and gender. And I hope to see more knowledge gained. I also hope to see more knowledge given on a consistent basis all the time. I'm tired of people learning their knowledge from Instagram posts. When we were growing up, I mean, you had a book report, you had to do research. So I think it's time that people start doing their research.